the Trump administration was deciding to dismiss an esteemed career official who led the Chicago Immigration Court. On July 3rd, Assistant Chief Immigration Judge Jennifer Payton was abruptly fired without any stated cause. Judge Payton's termination notice simply said the Attorney General Bondi was removing her, quote, pursuant to Article 2 of the Constitution. Judge Payton had served as an immigration judge since 2016, and in 2022 she was promoted to Assistant Chief Immigration Judge. Why would the Trump administration want to fire an experienced, non-political judge like Judge Payton? Well, a few weeks ago, as I've done many times as senator, I visited her Chicago Immigration Court to conduct an oversight. Judge Payton took time to show me the court and explain its functions. Soon after, she received an email from the Department of Justice political appointees. The email claimed that immigration judges should not directly communicate with members of Congress and congressional staff, and required all communications from congressional offices to be forwarded to headquarters for review and response. Judge Payton was dismissed soon after. Her abrupt termination is an abuse of power by the administration, punishing a non-political judge for simply doing her job. Congressional oversight is not just our right, but my responsibility under the Constitution. Judge Payton understood that and made her courtroom available. Since January, the Trump administration fired all career leadership at the Executive Office for Immigration Review, the arm of the Justice Department that oversees immigration cases. That included Chief Immigration Judge Sheila McNulty, who'd served as an immigration judge during the first Trump administration. Following the ouster of his Executive Office for Immigration Review leadership, the administration went on to fire or force out dozens of immigration judges, even as our immigration courts face a dramatic backlog of nearly 3.5 million cases. You remember President Trump's speech during the campaign over and over again? All these people who came across the border and were here for days and months and years and beyond, waiting to get their day in court, how many years they had to wait. You probably remember some of the statements made by members of Congress and President Trump himself, that we needed more immigration judges. How do you explain this situation? Here you have non-political appointees doing the immigration work, and at least several of them that we talk about today were terminated when they were doing their job and doing it well. Things got worse under the Trump administration, and now we have this cruel mass deportation effort and no semblance of due process. We've already seen the arrest of immigrants who are just trying to follow the law and attend court hearings. The day I attended the immigration court, just a few blocks from here in Chicago, there were no ICE agents present. It was an unusual day. They had been known to arrest people coming out of the courtrooms who had appeared before a hearing that was scheduled. This administration has tried to stop members of Congress from engaging in their constitutional responsibilities. I'm supposed to be sitting in those courtrooms. I appropriate the money. I'm part of the process of choosing these judges. It's something that comes with my job. And to attend these and say that any judge who speaks to me is now going to be dismissed is an outrage. We cannot stand for these fear tactics and means of weaponizing our immigration systems. That's why I stand by Judge Payton and Judge Espinosa, many others like him who've been fired for simply doing their job. I want to give them a chance to tell their side of the story directly. Judge Payton, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Senator Durbin. Thank you so much for your attention and your words today. It does mean a lot to me and the other judges who have joined me here today. As you heard, my name is Jennifer Payton. I'm the former Assistant Chief Immigration Judge, or ACIJ, I supervise the Chicago Immigration Courts, one of the third busiest courts in the country. I served almost 9 years in the Department of Justice. I cared about my job and I was good at it. I received outstanding performance reviews and numerous awards for my service to the Executive Office of Immigration Review, again, EUIR, the federal agency that administers the nation's immigration courts. As Senator mentioned, on July 3rd, after his visit on June 20th, I was fired by email while on a family vacation. No cause, no notice, no reason. Since January 2025, I've watched my professional colleagues and friends, over 100 of them, be either fired, resign, or transferred to other government jobs. Even more judges have simply quit. That leaves perhaps 600 immigration judges now, down from a high of a little over 700. As Senator mentioned, 3.5 million cases, 100 judges down since January. I'm not good at math, but that is not helpful to our backlog, right? Of those millions of pending cases, maybe 2 million include pending applications for asylum and other immigration benefits. And the only people who can administer and adjudicate those applications are the immigration judges who are being fired. Our nation's core of immigration judges, who again work for the Department of Justice in the executive branch, they adjudicate these applications, which can mean life or death for many asylum seekers. As you've all seen, there are astronomical increases in budgets for immigration and customs enforcement. There's no corresponding increase in funding for the immigration courts. The pressure on the remaining judges and the remaining supervisory judges is surely intense. EOIR's mission is to adjudicate immigration cases fairly, expeditiously, and uniformly while interpreting and administering the nation's immigration laws. I worry the EOIR has lost its mission. I speak today for my dedicated colleagues who have left their posts since January 2025. The immigration courts under EOIR are no longer honoring or offering due process like they did when I was appointed in September 2016. The court system has been systematically and intentionally destroyed, defunded, and politicized by this administration. I don't know why this has happened, but I fear for our country and for justice. I thank Senator Durbin and his staff for speaking out on this matter. I know that he holds immigration close to his heart. And from the bottom of my heart, Senator Durbin, I ask you to continue to investigate this situation and bring justice back to the immigration courts before it's too late.
One last favor.
Thank you. Yes.
Spell your last name.
My last name is Payton, Peyton. Thank you.
Ms. Espinosa, you
Thank you.
want to spell your last name, please?
My name is Carla Espinosa, Espinoza, and I served as an immigration judge at the Chicago Immigration Court until July 15th of this year. I was devoted to my job and I was very good at it. I had outstanding performance reviews. I had developed a reputation for my efficiency and for my fairness on the bench. Every year, I adjudicated hundreds of cases above the annual goal. For example, in the last fiscal year, I adjudicated over 1,000 cases. For these reasons, I was tapped to preside over the priority detained docket, in which I heard cases of respondents detained throughout the Midwest region. I faithfully discharged my duty until the very last minute on the bench. Late afternoon on Friday, July 11th, while I was on the bench, rendering a decision for a case I had just heard, I learned by email that my appointment would not be converted to permanent, and thus I would be terminated from my position without any reason being provided for that action. I am here on behalf of all federal immigration judges who have been improvidently terminated from their positions without explanation. In particular, I speak on behalf of the judges that were sworn alongside me in July 2023, of which approximately 20 judges have been terminated. These judges served across our nation and made substantial sacrifices to become public servants, with the expectation that absent any performance or conduct issues, they would continue to serve permanently. Many, myself included, divested or closed their law practices, took significant pay cuts. Some moved away from home. Some went months without seeing their families. These unjustified terminations have significantly weakened immigration courts nationwide at a time of increased detentions and immigration enforcement. While there is no stated reason for our terminations, we have seen that women and minorities have been disproportionately affected. For example, of those judges who were sworn alongside me, we have seen a pattern that all of those with a Hispanic last name, such as myself, have been terminated. All of those with a Middle Eastern last name have been terminated. All of those with a South Asian or Indian-sounding last name have been terminated. All of those who are openly LGBT have been terminated. We've also seen a pattern that all of those who provided pro bono services for non-for-profits have been terminated. This clearly raises serious concerns about transparency, fairness, and due process in our courts. I call for full transparency regarding our terminations. I thank Senator Durbin and his staff for the attention to this dire situation that we're facing and for giving us the opportunity to share our concerns. Thank you.
So we heard over and over during the course of the Trump campaign that we have too many people awaiting final judgment as to whether they can stay in the United States. Thousands, in fact, millions of cases. We know now that there are not enough immigration judges, even at full capacity, to deal with this volume. And what is going on in one of the busiest courts in the nation? They're terminating career immigration judges, non-political appointments. As Judge Espinosa said to us, you look at behind the decision and you have questions that need to be answered. Why are certain judges being chosen and not others? It raises a serious question about whether or not this court system is going to be guided by due process or politics. Glad to answer any questions.
You mentioned the pro bono work. Is there any sense that that might be why you were terminated? And also, is there any sort of legal recourse of kind of banding together things to
Again, I don't know why I was terminated. I don't know why Judge Espinosa was terminated. I speak for myself. One of my responsibilities as Assistant Chief Immigration Judge, I also worked on the Pro Bono Steering Committee. I also led the Law School Working Group, and my purpose on those two committees was to promote pro bono assistance within our immigration courts. I met with law schools, I met with pro bono groups to try and encourage and facilitate. Again, when you're not given a reason, you lie awake at 3 in the morning wondering why. It definitely could have been my association with the Pro Bono Steering Group. That's why I was given the Director's Award in 2022, or also my law school working group, my meeting with the Senator on June 20th. Again, when you don't know, you have to look and see what was in the minds. I do think that this came from higher up. I think that my decision, the decision to fire me and the other judges, was something that came from above our agency.
So again, I don't know the reason. There was no stated reason for terminations. I know it wasn't performance-based. I know it wasn't conduct-based. So that leaves us looking for illegitimate reasons for that termination. And all we can do is look at pretext, look at patterns. Those are the patterns that I've identified, particularly relating to the judges of my class of July 2023. I certainly have concerns about whether me being a female, having a Hispanic last name, whether that had something to do with my termination. I've also heard high-profile cases on the detained docket. I wonder whether how I ruled on those cases had impacted my termination. I wish I knew. I know I asked specifically of my higher-ups when I was terminated why, and I specifically asked whether my gender or sex and my heritage had anything to do with it. I am waiting for a response.
Were you guys being told or suggested how you should rule in on immigration cases? What are we pressured to drop asylums claims?
So I'll say that my chief at the immigration courthouse was, for the most part, with the exception of 1 week, Judge Payton, and she never directly told me to rule any specific way. However, we had been receiving a number of memos and emails and directives that had different tones and could be read to express, for example, that a judge shouldn't feel pressure or shouldn't have to give respondents time to respond to a motion made by the government. So whatever you read from that email, we were receiving that kind of directive.
What did you read from that email?
It was one of many. We were receiving emails and memos every week in varying tones from the beginning saying the federal workforce is lazy. Having been in private practice is one of the most hardworking forces that I've encountered. Then we received memos saying we believe judges can be targeted. It started with administrative law judges, but then we received one saying we're not going to defend additional protections for immigration judges. So just the general tone was we don't value your work and we're looking at targeting you. And so that, along with all of these other directives and emails, certainly carried a tone that was very concerning, instilled fear and concern in me and my colleagues.
I was going to add more on the May 30th, but he's more important than I am.
Go ahead.
So there's been a lot of talk about this email that came out that was sent May 30th. I received that email as part of my supervisory responsibilities. I sent it out to my judges. And it's available online. I'm sure you can find it. I saw it on the AILA website. The email itself is written with a lot of mays. Immigration judges may ask for 10 days for a response. Judges may actually decide to adjudicate on the spot. So the language is couched in mays. I speak for myself. I read that as a should. And I think that every judge who received that email also knew that coming from our supervisors, discussing motions to dismiss, when there had been such an increase in operations from ICE within our courtrooms, I myself read the mays, heard the should, if that makes any sense.
You were the supervisor of the court right here in Moore Street. When the government started sending ICE agents to your court, did you have a chance to say something? What was your position?
We, as supervisors, as ACIJs, had been advised that operations would be happening in our courts and to not interfere. I gave that guidance to my judges. I gave that guidance, I want to say maybe a month before we actually saw it happening. And then in mid-May was when we became aware that there were ICE actions within the courthouse floors on 55 East Monroe, and also to some extent in the other courthouse at 536 South Clark. So I'm in a little different group than the other judges, as I had almost 9 years, and I was going to retire from DOJ. I was going to get the donuts in the break room, and that's all set aside. As I was fired without cause, I have submitted an appeal to that termination to what's called the Merit Systems Protection Board, MSBP, which has also been decimated greatly under this administration. So it's been filed. I have no idea when it will be adjudicated.
Senator, can you weigh in on Governor Pritzker saying he's open to Democrats rewriting the maps in light of Texas? Do you agree with that?
Repeat what the governor said.
That he's open to Democrats redistricting in light of what's happening in Texas, and we need to look at all the options. Do you agree with that?
I do agree we should look at all the options, but I am really taken aback by the fact that the president is so bold and clear in his intention. He wants to fill the delegation of Texas with 5 more Republicans, which means he's prepared to take away districts that are now marginally minority districts, and that's troubling to me, very troubling. We usually follow a process that every 10 years, by and large, we wait and use the new census to write new congressional maps. But President Trump has made it clear he wants it done now. He doesn't want to wait at all. I think that's a mistake. I think it's likely to lead to denial of the voting rights of minorities in Texas. As far as Governor Pritzker is concerned, I don't know what his intentions are, but like him, I want to know what all the options are.
So, Senator, you're standing up in next to several judges today. What do you plan to do? Are you going to call the director of the EOIR to testify? And what recourse do you have?
Limited recourse, being in the minority in the Senate. Serving on the Judiciary Committee, Pam Bondi, the head of the Department of Justice, the Attorney General, will appear before us, I believe, sometime this year. Traditionally, that's how it occurs. But so far, the Republicans have not called many oversight hearings of Trump agencies for obvious reasons. They don't want to incur his wrath. But if I get a chance, I certainly will ask that of her or any of the supervisors in the department. In the meantime, we'll prepare a letter and send to her for details as to how many people are being dismissed nationwide. I don't hold out a lot of hope that she will answer the letter. She hasn't been very good at that.
Is there any way to get the immigration courts back to where they were before any of this happened?
If we're serious about dealing with the backlog, back to where they were is not nearly enough. We need more judges and more courtrooms to resolve these cases. These cases are in our system, subject to our due process requirements. And it appears to me that if you're dismissing the immigration judge, you're bailing on a due process requirement. That's a serious mistake.
Senator, just to follow up on the redistricting question, if it would be a mistake to do just mid-decade redistricting in Texas, would you also say it would be a mistake to sort of pursue fighting fire with fire in the district mid-decade redistricting in Illinois as well?
I'm not going to presume what I'll decide or Governor Pritzker will decide. I just have to tell you that it's pretty clear what President Trump is up to. He wants 5 new congressmen out of Texas at any cost. I hope that we don't revert to that nationwide.
Judge Espinosa, did you also file an appeal?
So what we're looking at, obviously, is what is apparently discriminatory factors, and so the EEOC is the body that would deal with that, and there's a group of judges within my class that are looking at legal action before the EEOC.
And that was about 20 judges, is that?
Correct, and some within that class of 20 judges are the ones who are looking at legal action.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
For getting fired.
Thank you for the attention. And this opportunity is very helpful because I don't know that the public really knows what's happening. And I don't know that we know how serious, how dangerous it
It
is.
wasn't for a country like this, God, for our country.
I just said this before, interviews, today's that